Welcome back, Defenders. Jake here. We've got to get through some election coverage first, but then I promise I've got some pretty interesting clips today. So up first is the UK. Their general election was back on Thursday, and Keir Starmer's Labour Party won big. Like historic landslide big. Like this was an extinction-level event for the Tories, the Conservative Party in the UK. They had been in charge of Parliament the last 14 years, but voters in the UK were pretty fed up with them, and they lost 251 seats in Parliament. The Liberal Democrats gained 64, and the Labour Party, the new majority, gained 211. So how does this impact Ukraine? And thankfully it doesn't at all. The UK's Labour Party will continue supporting Ukraine in their war against Russia. Here's a statement from the incoming Prime Minister, Keir Starmer. Ukraine's ongoing fight against Russian aggression matters to us all. The UK's support remains unshakable. I look forward to seeing President Zelensky soon. Fantastic. And here is Prime Minister Rishi Sunak on his way out, accepting defeat in the election.
Following this result, I will step down as party leader, not immediately, but once the formal arrangements for selecting my successor are in place. It is important that after 14 years in government, the Conservative Party rebuilds, but also that it takes up its crucial role in opposition professionally and effectively.
As an American, this is very bizarre to me. The guy who got fewer votes in the election conceded and accepted defeat. We don't really do that in America anymore, unfortunately. So let's now talk about France. Le Pen vows to stop Ukraine from using French weapons inside of Russia, and she also opposes potentially deploying French troops to help the Ukrainians. So Marine Le Pen has always been pro-Russian or sympathetic to Russia's views about their invasion of Ukraine, and her far-right party that she leads did really well in the first round of voting last weekend. So Macron called for these snap elections, hoping that he could stop Marine Le Pen from gaining an outright majority. Now the elections are happening today, results are still coming in, but based on exit polling and projections, this appears to be what France's new parliament will look like. Good news and bad news for Macron. The good news is he's right, and in the second round of voting, when the smaller parties are dropped off the ballot, more people switch their votes to both Macron's party, the Ensemble, and the left party, the New Front. Marine Le Pen's far-right party, they're going to have about 150 seats, nowhere near a majority, and there's nobody they can partner with to create a majority. So Macron was right, we stopped the far right, but he didn't get the most seats, 175. So the New Front, with 205, they're now the largest party, and they have to form a coalition with somebody, maybe Macron's party, but they get to be in charge. If they have the most seats, then they get to lead the coalition in France's parliament. So we dodged a bullet. Marine Le Pen was defeated. France doesn't have to have parliamentary elections for years to come. And this was a defeat for Russia. Russia really wanted Marine Le Pen's party to take the majority in the French parliament to cut off support for Ukraine. Support for Ukraine, I think, will continue, with the New Front having a coalition government with Macron's party. We're going to get more analysis later this week, but Russia's not happy with these election results. There's going to be a NATO Summit later this month, and South Korea is going to be showing up. South Korea is not a part of NATO, but they're being invited to participate. And though Stoltenberg didn't refer to it, Seoul last month said it was considering supplying Ukraine with weapons in response to Putin going to Pyongyang and signing a defense pact with Kim Jong-un. I've been making this argument actually for 2 years now. The reason why South Korea only provides humanitarian and financial aid is they didn't want the Russians getting involved with the politics on their peninsula. But Putin went ahead and did it anyways. The thing that was holding the South Koreans back from helping Ukraine militarily, Putin just did it anyways. He made a defense agreement with the North Koreans, promising to come to their aid if North Korea ever starts a war with the South. So it's now in the strategic best interest, the national security of South Korea, to make sure Ukraine wins this war. And South Korea is in the top 5 military arms exporters in the world. They have a very capable and robust defense industry. And I think at this NATO summit, they're going to make an announcement, because the North Koreans are sending weapons and soon troops. Yeah, South Korea, I think, is going to start sending lethal aid to assist Ukraine. This is good news. Ukrainian partisans blow up the Russian railroad track used to transport ammunition from North Korea. So this took place in Yekaterinburg. This is the Trans-Siberian Railroad. It's a very long railroad, and there are partisans everywhere that have been sabotaging rail lines and rail cars. Russia does fix the tracks pretty fast, but it still takes manpower, it still takes money, and it does slow down the delivery time. More bad news for Russia. Another Su-25 was shot down in Donetsk, probably with a man-pad. Russian mill blogger video captures alleged Ukrainian drone strike on an oil depot. This took place in Krasnodar. Ukraine continues going after refineries and oil depots. And this Russian mill blogger, his name is Romanov. I guess on Z channels he's pretty well known. But yeah, he shot a decent video of a successful Ukrainian drone strike on a Russian oil depot. I'll link this down below if you want to see it for yourself, but something tells me he's going to get in trouble for filming and releasing this video. Because the first rule about bad things happening to Russia in Russia is you don't talk about bad things happening to Russia inside of Russia. Here's the day after video. The firefighters have put it out. Refineries are a better target, but I think Ukraine does use drones to go after oil depots close to the border, because these depots are being used for the Russian war effort. Here's the map. Here's a cool map showing the deep strikes. Ukraine the last 6 or 7 months has committed to this path of striking oil refineries. This has Putin very concerned. And the longest range strike that Ukraine has successfully done is 1,800 kilometers, hitting a refinery in Orsk. It's never going to stop. Russia can't make it stop. Gas pipeline blew up in occupied Crimea. Was it sabotage? Was it a drone? I don't know, but I'll link it down below if you want to see a gas fire. Okay, this clip has gone viral, but a charity foundation in Moscow raised funds to purchase bulletproof vests, and they sent them to a frontline unit. And here's the Russian soldiers reacting to the bulletproof vests they were just gifted.
Что за плита? Давай посмотрим.
Китайцы какие-нибудь.
Да, наверное, кевлар, может.
Нихуя себе.
Ебать, что там? Ни хрена, это что?
Дрова с собой.
Я понял, это от деревянных пуль защищает.
Ну да.
Эти деревянными пулями будете или с рогатки.
Я думаю, что такое легкое?
Давай.
Заебись.
Пиздец, надо показать.
Защита нахуй.
So this happens frequently with the Russian military. This is corruption and theft. Somebody probably raised the funds to buy the vests. Once they had the vests, they took out the armored plating because it's valuable, replaced it with wood, sent the dummy vests, and then they resold the plating, which is actually valuable. I'm not saying this foundation did it, but somebody in the supply chain did it. This happens all the time with the Russian military. And I've got to share some of these pictures. This is a Mad Max cage on a Chinese golf cart that the Russians are using on the front lines. what's next? I really don't know. Here's a cope cage on a boat. I feel like the Russian soldier taking this picture is probably pretty proud of it. And this is real. We've been joking here on the channel that eventually Russian soldiers would be riding scooters into battle once they run out of motorcycles. And it's happened. There's a video. I'll link it down below if you want to see some combat footage. But these are Russian soldiers riding scooters into battle. And here's the clip I really want you guys to see. There's so much detail in this video. We'll talk about it after, but in my opinion, this completely encapsulates Russia's entire special military operation. So let's watch this together.
Верую в единого Бога Отца, Вседержителя, Творца неба и земли, видимых, что невидимых. И в единого Господа Иисуса Христа, Сына Божия, народного Божества, рожденного при Христе. Света, света, богословен, Христос, рожденный в сотворении, один случай, входит в Sabotage. Настраивающий ради нашей дороги, спасение шедшего с небес. И воплотившегося в руку Святой Марии, девичьего вышедшего. Распятого Господа, припадите, певайте, страдавшего, погребенного, воскресшего, в день по Писанию. И вошедшего на небеса, и сидящего десной Отца, и погребенного.
So in this clip, we've got two impoverished ethnic minorities of the Russian Empire, suited up and ready to go, about to be sent on a meat assault, and they're being given their last rites by an ethnic Russian who's morbidly obese. And these guys are about to go into battle, and I don't see any armored vehicles. I don't see any, BTRs or tanks. They've got ATVs, golf carts, and motorcycles. And they might not even be allowed to use them. They're probably going to be sent on foot, and then, these motorcycles are being used for supply runs or something. It's so stupid. So once these men are dead, they're going to be sent home, and how are they going to be treated in their final resting place? And here's a clip from Kremlin State TV showing that the graves of Russian soldiers have been desecrated by pigs. Let me share the clip.
На этих кадрах 100-килограммовый хряк роется в святая святых, словно в грязи. Стадо веслобрюхих осквернило десятки сельских могил, и что самое свинское, разворотило захоронения павших героев.
Здесь покоятся участники СВО погибшие, могила разрыта.
Скотина сбегает со двора местного фермера, который делает колбасу. Это уже не первый раз новость об очередном вандальном променаде, как ножом по сердцу жалуется Наталья, мама погибшего бойца.
Я бы с удовольствием, если бы он мне попался, я бы его, извините меня.
А другого языка заводчик и не понимает, уверяют жители.
Извинить матери элементарно в глаза. Стоит и вот так вот в своей позе. Вот вы все такие.
Вести уже приезжали в Карпасак весной после очередного свинства на сельском погосте. Тогда наша съемочная группа пыталась призвать к совести безответственного фермера.
Разрыли могилы воинов павших.
The graves of fallen warriors were dug up. We would like an explanation. So this is a local meat pig farmer, and his pigs sometimes get out. And these pigs have been digging up the graves of fallen Russian soldiers. That's so dark. And for whatever reason, apparently this guy doesn't know or speak Russian. More bad news for Russia's war propaganda efforts. YouTube has officially blocked the channels of pro-Russian artists sanctioned by the EU. 2 weeks ago, lots of Russian artists, part of Putin's propaganda machine, were sanctioned by the EU, and they were finally taken off Spotify, and now they've been taken off YouTube. I can search for Shaman Ya Ruski, and the official video is gone, though there are copies still up, but it's important that these people don't profit from this war, and obviously they're in collaboration and just working for the Russian government. The only major streaming service that is yet to remove them after these sanctions have been put in place is Apple Music. But I do think if enough people continue to mention this to Apple, I think within a week or two Apple Music will also drop these sanctioned Russian artists. Russia's central bank chief signals interest rate hike to come. So what is Russia's key interest rate at the moment? And it's 16%. after a series of hikes last year designed to tame prices and stop a devaluation of the ruble. But inflation is still running at 8.3% on an annual basis, far ahead of the bank's official 4% target. Inflation in Russia is really bad, worse than any NATO country. And this is what the chief of Russia's central bank is saying. Her name is Elvira Nabiullina, and she basically let the Russians know that everything is bad with the country's economy. She argues that the Russian economy now has 3 strong constraints: a lack of labor, a lack of access to Western technologies, and a lack of investment. All these factors are the result of Russian aggression against Ukraine. As a result, the Russian economy has reached a ceiling. Nabiullina openly admitted, this is the quote, "The situation shows us that we can no longer grow extensively. Growth can only be thanks to labor productivity, and labor productivity is technology." So at the beginning of the war, Elvira disagreed with Russia's invasion of Ukraine from an economic perspective. She resigned just before the invasion and wanted to retire, but Putin told her she wasn't allowed to retire. She had to stay in her post as the chief executive of Russia's central bank. And I think this woman actually has done wonders, miracles, to keep the Russian economy going. But she's signaling that she's running out of options. The sugar rush of Putin blowing $300 billion from the wealth fund to pay for more trucks and more bombs and more tanks and all these contract soldiers, it's causing inflation, and the money's going to run out. And things are only going to get worse in Russia. Here's a story worth quick mentioning. China and Belarus commence joint military drills. And there's no reason for China to want to militarily ally with Belarus aside from their geography. The Belarusian military is a suborder of the Russian military. Everything Belarus has is basically hand-me-downs from the Russian military. So of course China is doing this to put a footprint on the European continent. I think China wants to send a message to Europe and to NATO that they're going to be a global superpower, and their vision for the world is inevitable. So this is an exercise in Europe on the border with NATO, and Beijing is sending a signal to Washington. I also think that this is partly Lukashenko wanting to play the Chinese off the Russians. I do think Lukashenko is genuinely concerned that he could fall out a window or be poisoned, and then his country will be taken from him. Putin will hold a bogus referendum and then just annex Belarus. So by inviting the Chinese in, this is a counterbalance effect. Counterbalance against NATO for sure, but also against Putin and the Russians. It's a weird and dangerous world, guys. I don't know how to justify any of this. Let's get to the good news for Ukraine. Latvia to transfer over 2,500 drones worth 4 million euros this month. Thank you so much to the people of Latvia. Estonia has delivered their Mistral air defense systems to Ukraine. This was announced a couple weeks ago, but thank you so much to Estonia. Germany announces the arrival of a third donated Patriot system. Once again, this was announced 2 or 3 weeks ago, but the Patriot system has now arrived in Ukraine. Final clip I want to share with you guys is from the memorial service of Pete the Combat Medic. This took place yesterday in the capital city of Kyiv. It had a pretty big turnout. And there are military funerals for heroes every day in Ukraine. I want to emphasize that. Pete the Combat Medic was just well known because of his presence on social media, his lively personality, and his steadfast commitment as a foreigner to Ukraine's sovereignty and security. Here is a clip from his memorial service. Russia will be defeated. That's all for this update video. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. If you found this video informative, give me a thumbs up. Best way to support the channel. Comments and questions, let me know down below. I love hearing from you guys. Till the next video, keep defending the truth, keep defending democracy.